Ever feel like you're stuck, like you're trying to change but just not seeing the results?
A common feeling for sure.
Well, today we are diving deep into Atomic Habits by James Clear to unlock those secrets of lasting change.
We're talking small changes, massive results, right?
Exactly.
And what better place to start than with James Clear's own story? The one that quite literally reshaped his life.
Right. Getting hit in the face with a baseball bat as a teenager.
Oof, yeah.
I can't imagine. It landed him in a coma and facing a long, hard road to recovery. Talk about a wake-up call.
It really was. Imagine having to relearn basic skills, to rebuild your life, action by action. And that experience, as difficult as it was, it ignited a fascination with habits, how they form, how they can sometimes hold us back, but also how we can harness them for incredible growth.
And it led him to this core idea that it's the small things done consistently that have the biggest impact over time.
It's like that saying, little by little, a little becomes a lot.
I love that.
If you improve just 1% each day, those tiny gains would snowball into something huge after a year. Imagine that.
But here's the thing, those tiny missteps, those, I'll just skip it today moments, those add up too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They create a negative snowball effect. In fact, Clear uses this powerful visual, these two curves, one gradually sloping upwards and the other downwards. And it really hits home how much our daily choices, even the seemingly insignificant ones, shape our future.
Okay, so we've got to pay attention to those seemingly small choices. But what about when you're putting in the effort and not seeing those changes that you expect? It's like you're stuck on a plateau.
It's so frustrating.
This is where Clear's idea of the plateau of latent potential comes in. What is that all about?
So think of it like this. You're trying to learn a new language.
Okay.
You put in the hours, you study the vocabulary, but you still stumble through conversations. It can be discouraging, right?
Totally. You feel like giving up.
But here's the thing. You are making progress. It's just happening beneath the surface. Clear uses the example of an ice cube.
Okay.
You can apply heat to it for a while, and nothing seems to be happening. But then, boom, you hit that critical temperature, and suddenly it melts.
It's like all that effort was laying the groundwork for that breakthrough moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same goes for building good habits. Don't get discouraged if you don't see those immediate results.
Right.
Stay consistent. You might be closer to that melting point than you think.
So how do we push past those plateaus? How do we stay motivated when we're not seeing those big, shiny wins?
That's where we shift from just doing the habits to becoming the type of person who embodies those habits. It's a fundamental shift in mindset,
Okay.
and it's where we're headed next.
Okay, so we need to shift from just doing the habits to becoming the type of person who embodies those habits. I'm starting to get it, but this is where I really need you to break it down for me.
It's a powerful concept, right?
Right.
It's about aligning your actions with the identity you want to create for yourself.
So it's more than just fake it till you make it.
It's deeper than that. Think of it this way. Every time you choose a salad over fries, you're not just eating healthy in that moment.
Okay.
You're casting a vote for being a healthy person. We're saying, this is who I am.
It's like sending a message to yourself, reinforcing that identity.
Exactly. And that is incredibly powerful.
So how do we put that into practice?
Clear talks about a friend of his who lost over 100 pounds by consistently asking yourself, what would a healthy person do?
Right. He mentions that example in the book. But how did that question actually change her behavior? I mean, it seems so simple.
It's about shifting your focus from that immediate outcome to the bigger picture, to the person you are becoming.
Okay.
She told Clear that if a healthy person was going to a party, they might eat a healthy meal beforehand so they wouldn't be as tempted by the snacks. Or they might volunteer to bring a healthy dish to share. You see, it's about making choices that align with that identity.
That's such a practical way to apply that question to everyday situations. It's not just about willpower in the moment. It's about aligning your choices with who you want to be long term.
Exactly. And when you start seeing yourself as that person, it becomes easier to make those choices consistently.
Yeah.
You're not trying to be healthy. You are a healthy person.
Right. It's a part of you.
It makes all the difference.
So we've gone from doing the habit to being the habit. What's the next step? How do we make it stick? How do we go from wanting to change to actually building those lasting habits?
This is where Clear's 4 laws of behavior change come in.
Okay.
They provide a really practical framework for building those atomic habits that stick.
The 4 laws. Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive in.
All right. The first law is make it obvious.
Make it obvious.
We need to be aware of our habits, both the good and the bad, before we can change them.
Right. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So how do we make those unconscious habits more obvious?
Clear talks about implementation intentions.
Yeah.
Kind of a fancy way of saying plan it out.
Okay.
So don't just tell yourself, I'm going to meditate more. Be specific. Instead, say, after I pour my morning coffee, I'll meditate for 5 minutes in my favorite chair.
I love that. Because it's specific and actionable, you're linking the new habit to an existing one, pouring your coffee.
Yeah.
It acts as a trigger.
Precisely. You're making the cue for the new habit incredibly obvious.
That reminds me of something else. Claire mentions habit stacking. It's like adding a new habit onto an existing one, like you said. For example, after I brush my teeth, I'll floss.
Exactly. It's all about creating that mental link,
Yeah.
making it almost automatic.
Okay, so we've made it obvious. What's next? How do we make those good habits stick? I feel like that's always been my struggle. I start with good intentions, and then
Well, that's where the second law comes in. Make it attractive.
you get attracted. Okay.
The more appealing a habit is, the more likely we are to do it. Makes sense, right?
Okay, that makes sense in theory, but how do we make something like, say, exercising every morning more attractive? Because let's be real, it's not always the most appealing thought when that alarm goes off.
Well, think about it. What do you find yourself naturally drawn to? Often, it's the things that bring us some kind of pleasure or satisfaction.
Okay, yeah.
So we need to find ways to make our good habits more enjoyable.
Okay, so how do we do that?
One powerful strategy is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling.
Yeah, you link something you want to do with something you need to do.
Okay,
For example, you only let yourself watch your favorite Netflix show while you're on the treadmill.
that's a great idea. I am definitely going to try that one. So we've got make it obvious and make it attractive. What's next?
The third law is where we remove the roadblocks. Make it as easy as possible to follow through. It's about making it easy.
Make it easy. That sounds right up my alley. I'm all about removing obstacles, especially when it comes to building those good habits.
It's a game changer, honestly. Think about it. The easier something is to do, the more likely you are to actually do it.
Okay, that's pretty obvious when you put it that way. But how do we actually make it easy? I feel like life is full of friction.
It's about being proactive,
Mm.
about setting yourself up for success. Clear talks about priming your environment.
Okay.
It's like laying out your workout clothes the night before, or prepping that healthy lunch so you're not tempted by takeout at work.
Oh, that's a good one. I am totally guilty of forgetting to pack my lunch, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to grab something quick, and it's usually not the healthiest choice.
Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. It's about making the healthy choice the easy choice.
Right.
And here's a simple but powerful tip from Clear. It's called the 2-minute rule.
2-minute rule.
Yeah. The idea is to scale back any new habit to just 2 minutes. So instead of workout for an hour, it's put on my running shoes.
2 minutes. That almost feels like cheating.
But that's the brilliance of it. The goal is to make starting the habit so easy that you can't say no. And you know what often happens? Once you've overcome that initial resistance, you end up doing more than 2 minutes.
Oh, I totally get that. It's like when you finally convince yourself to get off the couch and go for a walk, and then you end up having a great time and walking for miles.
Precisely. The hardest part is often just getting started.
Okay. This is making me rethink my whole approach to habits. So we've made it obvious, we've made it attractive, we've made it easy. Is there anything else?
The final piece of the puzzle is to make it satisfying. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So we need to find ways to make those good habits rewarding, especially in the short term.
See, this is where I struggle. I'm good at starting, but I often lose steam when I don't see those big instant results.
I hear that. And Clear acknowledges this challenge. She says we live in a delayed return environment where the rewards for our efforts often take time to show up. But the good news is we can hack our brains a bit to make those good habits more immediately satisfying.
Tell me more, because I definitely need some of those hacks.
One strategy that works wonders is habit tracking. There's something incredibly satisfying about visually seeing your progress, like marking off those days when you stuck to your habit.
Oh, I can totally see that. It's like those loyalty cards at your favorite coffee shop. You get that little thrill every time you mark off a stamp.
Exactly. It taps into our desire for instant gratification, and it keeps us motivated. Clear himself, he uses a habit tracker to monitor his daily writing progress. Even as a best-selling author, he still finds it helpful. It keeps him accountable and reinforces that sense of accomplishment.
Okay, so we've got these 4 powerful laws, but even with the best intentions, motivation can dwindle. So how do we stay on track when boredom sets in or life just throws us a curveball?
Clear emphasizes the importance of finding that sweet spot between challenge and ease, what he calls the Goldilocks rule.
The Goldilocks rule.
Yeah, it's about pushing yourself just enough to stay engaged, but not so much that you burn out.
So it's not about aiming for perfection right out of the gate. It's about finding a sustainable pace.
Exactly. And it's about embracing the long game. Remember that visual of the two curves we talked about earlier? The real magic happens when we stay consistent with those 1% improvements. They compound over time.
It's like those tiny deposits into a savings account. They might seem insignificant at first, but with consistency, they grow into something substantial.
Exactly. And it's not just about blindly doing the same things day after day. Clear stresses the importance of reflection, of regularly reviewing your habits and making adjustments as needed.
So we're not just robots on autopilot. We're constantly learning, adapting, and refining our approach as we go.
Exactly. And that's what makes this journey of personal growth so exciting. It's not about being perfect, it's about showing up consistently, making those small improvements, and trusting that they will lead to extraordinary results over time.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on building better habits. So, what's the most important thing you want our listeners to take away from Atomic Habits?
That small changes, consistently applied, can lead to remarkable transformations. It's not about finding the time, it's about making the time, even if it's just for 2 minutes.
It all starts with that first atomic habit. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those atomic habits rolling.